Well, day number one didn't really go as expected for most, as we see 4 teams have already been eliminated, one of which is the number 2 seed overall from the pool phase. And how about this? Another big fan favorite in Luminosity is 0-1 with a 3-map loss differential after they were 0-3 versus Singularity. That one not as much of a surprise, and I'll tell you exactly why as far as what else we need to predict going into day 2, coming right up. COD fans, welcome. Good to see you guys. Before we get into this video, we got to address the elephant in the room here. A lot of you guys that follow along closely with me, whether it be for my YouTube content or for my casting or whatever it happens to be, went out on Reddit or Twitter or in Twitch chat and we're talking about how it's a mistake that I wasn't brought to World Championships, and we need to stop doing that immediately. I get where you guys are coming from, and I appreciate the sentiment, but this entire community, whether it be by casting, whatever I cast, whatever I put up on YouTube, is all about growing a positive environment together. If we're going to change the way that the Tier 2 scene is approached next year and how we can approach content for the CWL and beyond, it's all about positivity and communication and community as a whole. So I appreciate what you guys are doing, but every time you go out there and you throw my name around with anything negative, whether it be just a negative connotative tweet or a Twitch chat or whatever, that reflects poorly on the community as a whole, the one that we're building right here. You know, if anything, it just makes me want to work harder, which is not a bad thing whatsoever. So please get the negativity out of there, because everyone who's there is super talented and deserves our respect because they've earned their chance to get there. And we're still out here working. Again, nothing is collapsing around me. I'm fine. It's okay. I appreciate what you guys are doing, but let's try to be more positive, please, when it comes to supporting the people that are out there covering the event, because this is the last time we'll get an event maybe just like this, and we should all be enjoying it together. So I appreciate it, but we're building a positive community here. So please be more loving, be more supportive. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, okay? I appreciate it, but again, all the people that are out there on camera and on the microphone deserve our support, and you guys should be absolutely giving it. I'm giving it up. They deserve to be there. All right, so let's nip that in the butt and let's go ahead and just dig into our results coming from today. So a lot of things are going on. The way we're going to break things down with this is we're going to go through the results from day number 1 from a specific pool, and then look at their schedule for day number 2 and where they sit in implications for the actual bracket itself. Starting things off, Elevate, Celtic FC. Not super surprised by the results. Celtic FC looked very, very good in their time playing, and honestly, this is a team that I think you should be very, very scared for. They definitely have some work to do to clean things up when it comes to the hard point. They got smoked by United, but they did just enough to get past Elevate, who we know is a very good hard point team. They weren't able to get very much done in Search and Destroy, which is a worry for me. So that's where I'm kind of worried about this team going forward, as they'll have to play up against RBL. In the United games, they handled RBL without much of a problem really whatsoever, and then even against Celtic FC, they looked, like I mentioned, super, super dominant. Elevate was able to take down RBL Esports, so that's a little bit on a more positive note for Elevate, pardon me. It just comes down to what happens tomorrow, and you take a look at what that schedule looks like and where our standings are. It's going to be United versus Elevate and Celtic versus RBL. You don't like those at all, I don't think, if you're either of the two teams that desperately need a win, which are RBL and which are Elevate. So things are not looking very good there. United is guaranteed a spot. They're 2-0 plus 5. It really comes down to what happens in the games tomorrow. There is potential for a 3-way tie, pending that Elevate lose to United and RBL is able to beat Celtic. We would have 3 teams at 1 and 2, and it would come down to whatever the win-loss ratio is in maps. So there is potential there for RBL to still get in, but they have to do so very cleanly. They need to essentially go 3-1 or 3-0 against Celtic to be able to be in a spot where they can actually move on in. If Elevate are able to beat United, that sets the pace, I think, just generally. It just comes down to whatever happens between Celtic and RBL past that. They would have 3 teams at 2 and 1. And then again, map differentials would come into play. But again, I'm not expecting much here. Betting line-wise, I wouldn't touch anything here either. None of these games, I would say, are really all that worth watching. They're again the 4 o'clock Eastern spot. I wouldn't worry about any of these games. I just don't think that any of these games are going to go outside of what we already expect, which is that RBL will lose and that Elevate will lose. I just don't see it happening at this point in time. Going over though to Pool B. Again, the results here are very different, as Fuego were able to beat Gen.G in game number 5. And big question marks, I think, just generally as far as this Gen.G squad. You take a look across their other results from the day. again, not great. They didn't win a single hard point. They only averaged 175 points after they were smoked by Team War 92 to 250. They also only won one of their 3 search and destroys, and it was relatively close against Fuego. So this squad, you know, I'm a little bit worried about what's going to happen with these guys in the future, because they may have just ruined a lot of chances to get picked up as a franchise team if Gen.G, a major esports organization, decides they want to buy into the CWL going into next year. On the flip side, Enigma 6 is looking extremely good. General with a couple of cheeky strategies with the 2-time scope, the recon scope on the ICR, which looked really, really good. Good enough for a 3-0 versus War and a 3-1 versus Fuego. So you take a look at some of the statistics for these guys as they finished up the day. For Enigma 6, you got to be feeling super saucy about this. A 227 to 169 average in their hardpoint so far. They did lose one. It was to Fuego 182-250 on C side, and then beyond that, their search and destroy looks absolutely incredible, which is exactly what you want to see, considering that this team was sitting kind of in the middle of the road for their search before, and then they were very good and complete when it came down to their control. Now you look into tomorrow, and specifically as far as what's going to happen with this pool, and a lot of things to keep in mind here. There is still potential for, I mean, it's going to come down to what happens between Team War and Fuego as far as who gets in. That head-to-head is all that's really going to make a difference in there. Enigma 6, they've already secured themselves a spot at 2-0 going into it, but again, you still have to wonder about who's going to come out as the #1 seed here. And again, Enigma 6 versus Gen.G, I think, is honestly one that I would potentially bet on. Currently, as I'm looking at it, the betting lines aren't open, but Enigma 6 is coming in as the underdog, at least as I saw it initially, and I would take that. Gen.G look completely lost, and the map sets do definitely favor that of E6. For the Fuego War game, though, this is where things look a little bit more interesting, I think, because you take a look at them in specific. War has been looking pretty complete when it came down to their hardpoint. They did get kind of beat up by Enigma 6, but they smoked Gen.G. Fuego, on the other hand, they're actually 3-1 on their hard point with a couple of games that were very, very good. The biggest thing for this Fuego team comes down to their control. They have not looked good there whatsoever, and a couple of sketchy moments with their search and destroy. I give the favor still to War in that one, but I would keep your eye on it, because again, that's the 4 o'clock spot where whoever wins that one gets into the bracket. So you will see an open team get through. It just comes down to will it be Team War or Team Fuego. I've got Team War getting through that one without too much of an issue. Pool C results as you see them. FaZe Clan able to get the job done. 3-1 versus both Animosity and Mazer Gaming. Wasn't without a little bit of concern here or there. And then Units able to get the job done as well, as they found themselves a 3-2 versus Mazer and a 3-0 versus Animosity. Again, with both of the CWL teams going 2-0 and both the open teams going 0-2. That means that as you take a look at the pool breakdown, you're going to be looking at both CWL teams getting in. They play up against each other tomorrow, so that's going to be the one kind of to watch to see who comes in #1, and then Mazer Gaming and Animosity will play up against one another to determine who exactly finishes top 32 and who finishes top 28. I wouldn't bet on anything here. Again, there are some pretty favorable lines out there, but I think Mazer is able to take Animosity no problem, and I think FaZe is able to take Units no problem. So I would stay away from bets. This is all going down in the 5:30 spot, of which I would say none of these are the marquee matchups to watch, because as we get to Pool D, you're going to want to watch one of the matchups here. Going over what happened in day #1, Reciprocity able to get the job done versus Legend Status. Actually, everyone is able to get the job done versus Legend Status. But it's Envy who comes out on top in 2 best-of-5s that went all the way to 5. Able to survive against Sage, even though they dropped a 5-0 Search and Destroy. They literally full-sailed it. It was 6 straight for Sage on the comeback attempt, but Sage weren't quite able to lock things up, which definitely hurts. You would have, again, they were in a potential to finish the pool off for day #1, 2-0. Reciprocity also in that same mix, but not quite able to get it done. I'm not impressed by this Envy squad at the moment still, though. There are still a lot of question marks. A couple of big plays had to happen in order for them to even to clutch up a couple of really tight ones. Their Search and Destroy, again, like I mentioned in my previous video when I was looking out for them in the 32 to 32, their Search and Destroy is what's been looking really strong lately, and that's indeed the case here. 5.75 for them, 3.75 against them. They went 3-1 in the mode. And then a very even 2.54 and 2.5 against, as both of their controls went to round #5. So Search is where Envy are finding themselves the favor so far. And when you take a look at what they have coming up tomorrow, they will only have to play up against Legend Status, should be a 3-0. Envy have no problem getting through that one. I'm looking at this Sage and Reciprocity game. When it comes down to that time slot in specific for 5:30 Eastern time, you want to watch Reciprocity and Sage. And there also could be some consideration here for betting, because Sage is at plus 450 to beat Reciprocity, and I think it's very, very possible. I'm not going to say that it's definitely going to happen, but this Sage team looked very good in hardpoint. 239 to 198 on their average. They were 2-1 in the mode overall, which is, again, not bad at all. Also do have a pretty solid average in Search and Destroy as well as in Control. It just came down to the simple fact that they weren't quite able to clutch up on the Arsenal hardpoint, and they weren't quite able to get it done in the Arsenal Control against Envy. This is a scary team that I would not be surprised if they were able to beat Reciprocity. It just comes down to which Reciprocity are we going to see. Things to look out for there, but that Reciprocity Sage game is the one that you're going to want to watch, and one that you might want to throw a couple of dollars at, to be completely honest. Going to Pool E, this is where all of our teams were only playing one game, so they've got 2 to play tomorrow. Luminosity losing to Singularity in 3. I wasn't surprised about it, and if you watch my 32 on 32, I explained exactly why. Luminosity is a very one-dimensional team, and Singularity finessed the absolute living hell out of the veto process. They took them to Arsenal Hardpoint, which is a map that they're comfortable on, but they haven't played since just after Anaheim. Granted, they were 3-0 on that map from Anaheim and beyond, but they don't let them go to Frequency. They also are able to take them to Payload, Search, and Destroy, the second worst map that they play outside of Frequency, which they've only played twice. They're now 2-4 on Payload. Brilliant veto process from Singularity. And then they send them to Frequency Control, where they're 7-7. Again, a map that Luminosity says, all right, we're fine going here. But Singularity was prepared for LG. They dissected them, and I have to imagine that they guessed exactly which maps that Luminosity were going to pick for their set, because they handled it beautifully. The Singularity's team is going to come out of this pool 3-0. Saying it right now. UIU was able to handle Vanity without much of a problem as well. So you take a look at tomorrow and what the pools look like for this one in specific. It's technically UIU and Singularity up top, as they both found 3-0s. Luminosity and Vanity have to struggle to come on through. So you got Luminosity and UIU. Yes, UIU did look decent today, but it was against a Vanity team that did not look super prepared. For Singularity, who at the moment are looking extremely difficult and tough to beat, I wouldn't be surprised for them to be prepared for UIU either. It's going to be a little bit more hard, I think, to prepare for UIU because we don't have as much information on them, but I have faith that Singularity are going to take that set versus UIU no problem. I also had them taking the set versus Vanity no problem. So it comes down to Luminosity versus UIU and Luminosity versus Vanity. I've got LG winning both of those. Singularity is getting even money on UIU, so definitely bet the match line there, I would say. It's a pretty fair bet. I mean, that's a fair line, to be sure. I mean, again, Singularity's prepared. I have 100% faith that they're going to take UIU without much problem. Pool F. Pretty easy one here. 100 Thieves. They did find a 3-0 versus Sicario, but it was a close 3-0. And then Midnight were able to take Cure of Fury without really much issue whatsoever. You see the score there, 3-1. You go back to what that set was versus 100 Thieves and Sicario. It was a close one. 250-206, 6-4, and 3-2. That's a good look for Sicario. And honestly, again, I would keep your eye open to see what exactly the lines are going to look like, because I see the Sicario team potentially making some moves. The other bad news here, though, as you take a look at the schedule for tomorrow, is the fact that Sicario plays Midnight right off the rip, and this Midnight team is also looking dangerous. Right now, as far as what they've been able to do on their match versus Fury, it was a 250-170, a 250-128, and a 6-3 on the Search. They did fall 0-3 on the Control. This is a team that's been scary in Hardpoint, and they're continuing to showcase that here. Beyond that, they're getting better and better at Search, and that's a big worry, I think, as well. So for that game, that's going to be one of the first games up. Definitely watch that Sicario versus Midnight game, because I think it's going to showcase a lot, and I think that's where the pool is really going to be riding on as far as who wins that game. 100 Thieves, I think, could be given a run for their money by Midnight as well, but I see them still coming out of this pool 3-0. Fury, as much as I want to say you have a chance versus Sicario or 100 Thieves, I don't think they do based on what I saw today, so I think they're going to go home at an 0-3 in the match win-loss ratio. For me, it comes down to watch that Midnight Sicario game. That's at 1 o'clock Eastern time, and then the 100 Thieves and Midnight game is at 7 o'clock Eastern time. Depending on what happens, that could be the pivotal match to kind of set what happens in this pool side, because, again, I think that the match versus Midnight and Sicario, It'll put a must-win scenario onto one of those two teams when it comes down to potentially a tiebreaker if there were to be one at the very end. Pool G, Optic able to handle Train Hard pretty easily, and actually they looked really dominant today. And then Evil Geniuses smoked Carnage without much of an issue whatsoever. So it's a 3-1 for Optic over Train Hard, a 3-0 for Evil Geniuses over Carnage. And again, like I mentioned, those were pretty lopsided totals. The only match I think really worth watching in this one is going to be the EG versus OG set. That's going to be happening at the time of 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be one of the last ones of the night. You're going to want to tune into that one. It's going to be a really, really good one. I've got Optic taking Carnage and EG taking Train Hard, no problem. So by those two games, you'll have Optic and EG sitting at 2-0. It comes down to first seed and second seed, I think, by that third set that you're seeing on your screen there with Optic versus EG. So it's going to be a tight one. It's going to be a fun one. That's going to be one I think you need to be worth watching. As far as betting lines in this game, pass them. There's nothing worth betting. Carnage Gaming is plus 750 against Optic. I don't see it happening. Same thing with Train Hard versus EG. It is a plus 155 for EG over OG. So if you're a fan of Evil Geniuses and you don't like what you see from Optic and you love what you see from Evil Geniuses, potential to make a little bit of money there. So definitely keep that one in the mindset. And then Train Hard's only getting a plus 110 versus Carnage. Honestly, a game that's probably going to be a throw up. And honestly, I wouldn't bet that one, touch it. I wouldn't touch it with a 10,000 foot pull. Pool H. 2 3-0s. Splice looked decent versus Aspire, although it was closer than the 3-0 might suggest, and Heretics absolutely bullied Hybrid. Going to first and foremost, that Splice and Aspire game, it was close. 250, 228 on the Hacienda Hardpoint, 6-4 in the frequency search, and then it was a pretty open blowout on Gridlock Control. 3-0 for Splice. Aspire, I would not sleep on them. It just comes down to, again, this Heretics team looked disgusting today. The biggest thing when you look at what's going to be coming up tomorrow, Splice versus Heretics is first. That's one that you're going to want to watch at the 2:30 mark, because that's going to likely determine whatever happens between Aspire and Heretics. And then again, based on what I saw from Hybrid, I really wasn't impressed. I think like Aspire is going to have no problem with Hybrid tomorrow. I think that it's played a whole different speed, a whole different level. I'm not really worried about it too much. It just comes down to what is Aspire able to do to prepare for Heretics, because I think it's probably going to come down to that. Personally, the Heretics versus Splice game, I think, could go either way. Based on what I saw, I think Heretics looked more cool and comprised. I have Heretics actually beating Splice in that one, which, again, they are actually going at a plus 120, which is worth, I think, a bet when it comes to the match line. But that Aspire versus Heretics game might be what determines, could potentially be a three-way tie at 2-1 up top. So a lot of things in Pool H to kind of keep your eye on as far as map differentials go. Definitely a pool worth watching, because even that Aspire versus Hybrid game, if you're Aspire, you need a 3-0 there. You absolutely do. 3-1 at the worst, but you cannot go Game 5 versus Hybrid. You would love to 3-0, get yourself a better map win-loss ratio, put you at even, where you can go into Heretics, know your fate as far as we just need to beat Heretics, and we should be good to go. That's the idea at the end of the day. Who knows if that'll actually occur? A lot of things to consider. This was a video that went a lot longer than I said it would, but those are your kind of breakdowns and predictions for you guys. Again, spread the positivity, spread the love. This community is all about growth, working together, and building something positive. So as much as I appreciate you guys trying to go out there and go to bat for me, it doesn't help at all. It just flat out, it just absolutely doesn't. So, you know, if you want to join our Discord and you want to talk, you want to be more informal there, please feel free to do so. The Discord link is in the description below. I will be more active in my Discord tomorrow. Sorry I wasn't all that active today. I had a bunch of stuff going on with having to deal with insurance policies and stuff while games are happening. It was a mad dash. But if you want to join us, we'll be hanging out, we'll be typing, we might be doing a little viewing party, things of that nature. So feel free to come on by. It would be a pleasure having you guys. Thanks again for all your support. You guys are incredible. It means the world to me that you guys feel that kind of camaraderie, that you really believe in what we're doing here. But again, we're doing this together, and we're doing this to build the community up as a whole. So again, take that away with you. Hopefully this video series helped. We'll catch you guys for the winner's bracket breakdown after day 2. So you're not going to miss that one. Make sure you hit the subscription button, ring the notification bell to know when my video does pop up live. And until the next one, I hope you guys keep holding it down. Later, bye-bye.